So Prime Minister Krivokapić, dear Zdravko, welcome. It's great to see you again. This is actually your third visit to the NATO headquarters, and it's really great to be able to sit down with you and to discuss the different challenges we face as a NATO alliance. Montenegro is a valued ally making important contributions to our shared security. Your troops serve in NATO's multinational battle group in Latvia. You also contribute to our KFOR peacekeeping mission in Kosovo, helping to build stability in the Western Balkans. And I welcome that Montenegro is increasing defense spending. All this shows your strong commitment to NATO, and Montenegro can always count on NATO. Our air policing mission continues to keep your skies safe, with jets from Italy and Greece. NATO and allies have also shown strong solidarity and support to Montenegro during the COVID-19 pandemic. We have provided equipment, medical supplies, and financial support through the NATO Pandemic Response Trust Fund and stockpile. So, Prime Minister, we also address the current security environment. We continue to see large and unusual concentration of Russian forces close to Ukraine's borders. NATO remains vigilant, and we are monitoring the situation very closely. We call on Russia to stop its provocations, de-escalate, and be transparent about its military activities. We also discussed the Western Balkans. Allied strongly support the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So the inflammatory rhetoric in the Republika Srpska is a matter of serious concern. The unified structures of Bosnia and Herzegovina are important for the stability of the country, in particular the armed forces, one of the country's strongest multi-ethnic institutions. NATO remains committed to our strong political dialogue and practical cooperation with Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we will continue to support reform efforts of the country for the benefit of its people. NATO's open door policy has been a historic success, and it contributes to security in the region. Montenegro has seen the benefits of being a member of the transatlantic family of nations since you joined the alliance in 2017. And I welcome your efforts in promoting stability in the region. NATO will continue to build stability, security, and cooperation in the Western Balkans, including our KFOR peacekeeping mission in Kosovo and our offices in Sarajevo and Belgrade. So, Prime Minister, thank you for being here today. I look forward to continuing our work together to make our strong alliance even stronger. Welcome, and it's great to have you here, and please have the floor.
Distinguished Secretary General, Mr. Stoltenberg, it is my pleasure that I visited today this institution, which is the core, the headquarters of a NATO alliance, and I'm immensely glad that in addition to expressing all of these common elements of our conversation and talks, I'd like to express something that is of utmost importance for Montenegro, which is that Montenegro is a responsible, serious and conscientious, fully predictable partner and ally of NATO. In this regard, when it comes to our commitments, we stand ready to meet all the NATO standards and within the shortest time possible to apply them in practice where we still lack complete implementation. As far as our financial commitments are concerned, as we promised, by 2024, we will be making budgetary allocations, reaching these 2% for the Ministry of, namely on behalf of our Ministry of Defense and on our path of streamlining the military of Montenegro, which will be focusing particular attention in the future on the challenges such as strengthening of our naval fleet, which hasn't been modernized enough in the past, also in all other areas. Whilst perhaps the most important task for all of us is the greatest challenge of ours is tackling cyber threats, which pose a challenge not only for Montenegro but also for all the other allied members. I thank you once again for this wonderful welcoming and for this confidence that you've trusted us with, and I'm looking forward to our next meeting.
So we'll go for the first question to Ivan Mijanovic from Radio Television of Montenegro.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Secretary General. How do you assess the current relations with Montenegrin government, and where do you see the possibilities of strengthening the further cooperation? And for Mr. Krivokapić, how do you comment on the DF platform in which there is no option left for you to be Prime Minister? And are you still an option for URA to be the Prime Minister of Montenegro? Thank you very much.
Montenegro is a highly valued ally, and I'm actually proud that I was Secretary General of NATO when we invited Montenegro to become a member of this alliance. And since then, Montenegro has proved its commitment to NATO, its commitment to our collective defense, and allies, all the other NATO allies, appreciate Montenegro's contributions to different NATO missions and operations, to our presence in the Baltic region, contributing to the NATO battle group in Latvia, and also the way troops and forces from Montenegro participates in different NATO exercises. I see a potential to further strengthening the work we do together in NATO with Montenegro, in particular when it comes to stability in the region. The Western Balkans is of great importance for, of course, Montenegro, for the region, but also for the whole of NATO. It's at the heart of Europe. NATO has a history there. NATO has a presence in the Western Balkans, and we have seen some developments in the wrong direction over the last years. We are concerned about the situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina with the inflammatory rhetoric by Mr. Dodik, and his messages is actually undermining one of the main achievements we have made to create a multi-ethnic armed force in Bosnia-Herzegovina, important for Bosnia-Herzegovina, important for the whole region and all of us. We also welcome Montenegro's contributions to our efforts in Kosovo. We saw recently how the NATO troops and KFOR troops, supported also by Montenegro, work together with EU diplomats and actually were able to solve some of the tensions, some of the disputes we saw on the border between Kosovo and Serbia recently. So we have a long way to go, but we absolutely trust and fully are fully. So we totally rely on Montenegro continuing to be a committed NATO ally, helping us to address the challenges we face in the Western Balkans. Then I think that air policing is also an area where we work closely with Montenegro. It demonstrates how NATO allies operate together. We have two allies, Greece and Italy, providing air policing in close coordination and cooperation, of course, with Montenegro. It demonstrates the strength of our alliance. And overall, the stability that NATO provides is also a precondition for prosperity. We have seen that allies or countries which have joined NATO, they have also seen increased investments, more economic prosperity as a result of the stability that NATO provides. So there are many areas where we believe in stronger cooperation, and we see the benefits of Montenegro being a NATO member, and therefore we are grateful for the many contributions Montenegro makes to our alliance.
I'd like to reply. I thought that your question here in the NATO headquarters, here in the headquarters of the European Commission would be geared towards Europe, and you're bringing me back to Montenegro. But since I always reply to questions, I will also reply in a very straightforward manner. That platform is not intended for Zdravko Krivokapić. That platform has to do with political coalitions, which constitute majority. And I salute every decision where 41 MP would present their clear position towards any decision. And I wish luck to anybody who will take over this government, who will replace it, or perhaps will have new elections. The most important thing for Montenegro is that we move forward towards programs, so that through various programs we bring rebirth to Montenegro. And it's precisely because this government has clearly put forward its 4 programs that these programs are actually aggravating some politicians, because these politicians just strive to keeping positions. So when it comes to relation with Dura, I have had always a good cooperation with Deputy Prime Minister Abazovic. When it comes to the relation of Ura towards Prime Minister, you should ask Ura. I'm really not a man who is reading anybody's mind, and I will not be dealing with that even if I could. Thank you.
And we'll take a last question from Viesti Miloš Radović, who's online.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question to the Mr. Secretary General. Can you comment on the new proposal from the ruling Democratic Front about the reconstruction of the government that includes that Mr. Krivokapić would be replaced from the Prime Minister post? Would that, in your opinion, affect the cooperation with NATO? And I would also use this opportunity to ask Mr. Krivokapić to comment on the situation that you mentioned about Mr. Dodik and the tensions in Bosnia and Herzegovina, how he sees the acting of Mr. Dodik. Thank you so much.
It's not for me as Secretary General of NATO to comment on domestic political issues in each and every NATO allied country. That's for the politicians, the parties of Montenegro to address and decide. What I can say is that I'm confident that Montenegro will remain a committed NATO ally, that the membership of NATO has helped to also foster economic prosperity, create the conditions, the framework for also economic prosperity, and that, for instance, the support that NATO allies and NATO have provided to Montenegro during the pandemic is, of course, also important for the country in dealing with the consequences of the coronavirus. Let me also add that the support for NATO, according to the opinion polls, have actually increased over the last months, and I think for me this is an example, demonstration of the fact that yes, of course, in all NATO allies there are different opinions about many things, but the NATO rests on support from the people, from the governments in 30 democratic countries which have decided to stand together and defend each other, because we are safer when we stand together, and that's also the case for Montenegro.
Pa kao što znate, Crna Gora uvijek ima praksu da nekome pomogne, a da nikome ne odmogne. To je princip koji je možda lako izreći, ali teško realizovati u praksi, ali takva je naš odnos prema svim susjedima. Ono što je karakteristika u odnosu na vaše pitanje, a tiče se gospodina Dodika, ja mislim da mi svi kao odgovorni ljudi treba da tamo gdje se dešavaju problemi, te probleme pokušamo riješiti i što je najvažnije, ne potpirivati vatru ili dolivati ulje na vatru tamo gdje ne treba. Bosna i Hercegovina ima jasno definisan Dejtonski sporazum i to je osnov na kome treba graditi buduće relacije.
Thank you very much. This concludes this press point. Thank you.
Thank you.